Hello, this is the Library Surgery podcast, and this week's topic is referencing. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Library Surgery, the library podcast. I'm Matt Holland, and I'm the Library Manager of the Library Knowledge Services for NHS Ambulance Services in England, also called LKS ASE. The topic I'm addressing today comes up from time to time in the library mailbox. It's the topic of referencing, and one form of referencing in particular, Harvard referencing. So before I get into the weeds of referencing, I just want to address some of the broad issues to put everything into its correct context. First thing to say is that there are two overall referencing systems. The number referencing system, where references are indicated by a number in the text which corresponds to a number in the bibliography or references at the end of a piece of work. And you will have encountered this in your reading because it's widely used in clinical and medical journals. The second system is the name-date system, where references are indicated by the name of the first author and the year of the publication in the text. And this refers to references at the end of a piece of work, which are listed alphabetically by author. This is also called the Harvard system, and it's used by most universities, if not all, and by many journals and textbooks. Having got that out of the way, I just want to say a little bit about why we reference. I say this because some of the inquiries I get, reading between the lines, suggest this is just some mean thing that lecturers or editors or whoever have made me do. Well, it's not quite like that. To clarify, here are the main reasons why we reference. So the first reason is to show the origins of our ideas so our reader can follow our argument and see what sources we have used. The second, to acknowledge the source of our ideas and to show that you are not claiming these ideas as your own. The third, to allow the reader to follow up on the sources you've used through your references and to investigate the topic of your piece of work further. And finally, or fourth, because this is a requirement of academic and scholarly discourse, and in many cases, referencing will form part of the mark or assessment of your piece of work. If that's clear, then let's move on to referencing itself. In its most basic form, it is a system of rules to format references to books and journals. There are literally thousands of sets of rules, and so your first task, if you're writing a university assignment or writing for publication, is to find out which set of rules you should be using. This should be on your university website or in the guidelines to authors of any publication. They may refer you to widely used sets of rules for referencing, such as the American Psychological Association, or APA. Currently, this is in its 7th edition and is very popular with universities. They may have their own version of Harvard, which is usually on the library website or on the publication website. Even LKS ASE has its own version of Harvard based on one originally written for Bournemouth University. Just as an aside, there are also thousands of versions of Harvard that probably don't differ very much from each other. But if you are told to use one version, it's kind of an own goal if you don't follow it. The rules are very simple. You just arrange the different elements of the reference in the right order with the right punctuation. For journal articles, for example, it would be the author's surname, the author's initial, the year in brackets, the title of the article in italics, the title of the journal not in italics, the volume, round brackets with the issue number, page numbers, available from with the URL and the date you accessed it. Did you remember that? Well, no, of course you didn't. All the intricacies are typically set out in easy to follow examples in guides and websites. All you need to do is remember to make a note of the reference when you find it and follow the instructions when it comes to doing the actual referencing. Depending on the approach you take, many just follow the rules and move on. A few will spend hours worrying about whether it's a comma or a semicolon after the issue number. For publication, I would say that this will be important, and a good copy editor will certainly pick you up if your referencing is inaccurate. For most uses for assignments and so on, markers or readers will probably just check that you have cited the sources in the text, that they're listed at the end of the work, and they look right. and that the expected references to key works are present. This goes back to the point I made earlier about why we reference being as important as formatting the references correctly. It won't be surprising to learn that there are many technical solutions to referencing. So you could just use a reference generator, which takes a link to the publication you want to reference, usually a web address or something called a DOI or Digital Object Identifier, and spits out a formatted reference in the required system. Just search Google for reference generator and you will find many of these. This will work for a few references, but as the number of references increases for a research project, dissertation, even a thesis, you'll have to get more serious about storing references, organizing them, and outputting them in the correct format. This means using reference management software. It's not the intention in this talk to provide a critique or comparison of reference management software. You can find out more information on the web. I'm just going to mention a few key names to make my point. Some reference management software are free to use at a basic level. Two that are well known are Mendeley, owned by the multinational publisher Elsevier, and Zotero, which is a non-profit foundation. You pay for the extra storage you use, as they will store the references and the full text and any other notes you make. A small standalone project is unlikely to consume too much storage, and so you can usually use these for free. They also have a web interface to be able to enable you to see your references anywhere that you have an internet connection. You may not be able to download onto NHS computers, however, but it should be fine if you wanted to download versions of these onto your personal computer. EndNote and RefWorks are paid-for software. They do discounts for students and academics. Some universities will provide you with licenses at no cost to you. Always ask at the library before you purchase anything. RefWorks is easy to use. EndNote is one of the original products in this area and is quite sophisticated and has a feature-rich interface. Reference management products will work with your word processor to automatically insert references and generate bibliographies in the correct format, including, of course, the many varieties of Harvard. So there you have it. That's Harvard referencing. It's probably a lot more straightforward than you think. If you have any challenges or questions, you can always contact the library. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Goodbye.